Yeah, I'm Kenneth. I'm going to talk about codemods, and nice that you don't know what it is, because this is an introduction talk to like how you can refactor JavaScript code using codemods. So just a quick raise of hands. Who has a vague idea or some idea of what codemod is? Yeah. You probably, did anybody of you ran a codemod on your code base? Written one? At least you have. You can. Yeah. Very nice. Okay. So yeah, I think it's a nice little tool that I've gotten quite fond of, and it's like a tool in your development toolkit for doing code transformations and refactoring your code. So you're probably already doing code transformations in your editor or using tools already every day. At least I do. Search and replace, change a variable. That's kind of like a code modification, very simple. You can use some regular expressions to make it a bit more fancy, and by these two you get most of your work done, right? Change a variable or a function name or whatever, some import statements, and you're almost there. But there's some other tools that you also might be using. Babel is also a code transformation tool that transforms your code into something else. Running ESLint with --fix actually also transforms your code into something that is correct according to some rules. And then finally I just grouped these code mods down here, which are related. You can also use Babel for doing code transformations, your own little code transformations. It's all part of the same thing. Yay, Christmas. So I like to think of, I also like to think, but there's also another dude, Jeremy, here. I think it's a really nice code that you think of it as a scripted find and replace functionality. So it reads your code in, and you can transform it, and you can write it again by preserving the same style that you originally had. So let's take this very simple example here. Can you see it? Yeah. So it's using some variable declarations, not using ES 2015. So if we like to do that, you see here, this is the output that I would like to have. And I cannot really just use a simple search and replace here, because I actually need to know about how the program actually executes, or if some of these variables actually changed afterwards, as I cannot determine if it needs to be a const or a let. So here we get into some more code mods kind of code, where you actually look at the AST of the program, the abstract syntax tree, and then modifies it. So for this program, this is like one representation of the AST here. You would have the program as the top node, and it has 3 children, 2 variable declarations, and then finally an expression statement at the end. So this is basically the representation of the program. So if we could just modify these 2 variable declarations, and then save it again, serialize it again, then we're basically done. So this is code modding. This is what it's all about. So it's AST to AST transformations. So there are several tools. This was just a quick search. I didn't try the 2 first ones, but there are tools for different languages for doing code transformation. And for JavaScript, it's usually JS CodeShift that you use, or Babel. JS CodeShift, as other things, are given to us by Facebook. And it's basically a CLI to execute code mods on your code base using multiple processes. And it's a wrapper around 2 other libraries, recast and AST types, that represents an AST and that actually is able to save the AST again. So in order to get you started, install it, and you execute JS CodeShift given a transformer that you can write yourself or you can find online on your source code or wherever you want the code to be transformed. And if we look at this myTransformer.js here, it basically looks something like this. This is the API that JS CodeShift provides to you. You get a file in, and you give an API in, and then you can do whatever you want with it, and you'll be returning a string back. So as an example, this little program here is a code mod that replaces all the occurrences of foo with bar. So as you see, I start by calling API.js shift, on my source code. Now I have an AST in my hand, and then I can call some functions on it. And here I'm just finding all variable declarations with a given literal, and I rename it, and I call to source in order to serialize it again. So that's a very simple program here. Let's look at a bit more advanced program, this nice song here that we would like to transfer into using const and let instead of variables. So let's just do it. So a nice way to get started on writing these codemods is go into astexplorer.net. It's also nice if you want to do your own little Babel transformer or something like that. It looks something like this when you just start it up. And the first thing you will do is you will tell it what transformer you're actually using. So you might be writing an ESLint transformer or Babel, or we're actually doing JS CodeShift here. So this little tool is nice to get you started. So what you see on the top left here is actually a small program. We don't want to go into that right now. I'll find my song soon. And bottom left, you would see your a transformer. And bottom right here, you would see the output of this transformation. So let's just jump into. I started a bit on it. We have our song here, and the nice thing about this AST Explorer is that you can actually see the AST. You can explore it over here to the right. Because if you don't know what is song really, what is it actually called, it's an identifier. Okay, cool. You can go up in the tree and see it's actually a part of a variable declarator, as part of a variable declaration, all of that. So that's pretty nice to get you started, and you would see that this looks very much like one of my first slides, where you have two variable declarations and an expression statement. So now we're just going to write the program. So as I said, I started a bit on it. This is the code mod that we are writing here. We get a file in, we get the API in. We start by calling JS CodeShift on it to get an AST, and now we can actually start finding stuff, and I'm finding all variable declarations, and I'm just starting by finding all of those that has a kind, that is a variable, and then I have a little helper function that checks if this variable declaration is mutated later in this file, and based on this I would either use let or const. So as you see right now, I say that nothing is mutated, although it isn't really true, because we see song is mutated here. So my program is not really correct yet. And that's the fun thing about code mods. You can really see the output. You just need to hack on it until it works. This is a very simple example. There's a lot of corner cases it doesn't handle, but this is just as an example of it. So let's try to do it. Basically, we need to figure out if this variable declaration here is modified later. So let's start by figuring out what is the actual variable here. And that's why this tool is pretty nice, because it helps me in figuring out what are the things actually called here, because you might not be familiar with what the AST is actually called. So now we'll just start by do a console log, and you say node to get the actual AST node. I don't know if you can see, all of you. Down here I have a log. And I would be able to actually go into the declarations, because there can be multiple declarations on one line, multiple variable declarations on one line. And now I think I should be able to get the variable name. So now we have it down here. We have O and song. So let's just save that. So this is the variable that we need to figure out if it's actually mutated at a later point. Yes. So in order to figure that out, we can actually get the AST again from JS CodeShift, and then just search for any occurrences of whatever these are, where you actually change it. So this is an assignment expression. So let's search for those. Yes, so this should find all assignment expression, and we can actually just log them out. If JS code shift once. Oh, it crashed. Or? What? Yeah, I'm trying. Okay. But yeah, so we will find all the assignment expressions. I cheated a bit. The next tab actually shows the final program. Just wanted to be like Matthias, do live coding. Thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, but let's see. I'll find it over here. So here we have the final is mutated function. And what the cool part of AST Explorer is that you will get all of these names. You will learn like what are the nodes called and how do I find them. So to figure out if this variable song here is mutated or the variable O is mutated, I would find all the assignment expressions where the left-hand side of the assignment is actually the variable, and then based on that we get the ES 2015 code. Yeah, so that's basically it. So what can you use these for? So as we just saw, like transforming code from like old style code to ES 2015, you can find these online. You can just run it on your entire source code, and then you would have a bit more modern JavaScript, not using string coordination, but maybe using template literals or template strings. You can also find code mods that actually transfer CoffeeScript to ES 2015. That might be interesting if you're working on a code base written in that. This one is pretty interesting, React classes. So if you have a React class that doesn't have any lifecycle methods, you can easily, or you can at least find, code mods that transfers that into pure functions. And upgrading libraries, perfect use case for this. Actually, React includes for all breaking changes a code transformation that you can just run. So whenever the next version of React is there, you would just find a code mod for that and then apply it on your source code, and that should do it. That's at least a requirement from Facebook when they do breaking changes, also for internal libraries. And in general, just code fitness, right? Making sure that your code is strong and fresh. One example that I know Matthew here did at one point was actually removal of translations. So you might be familiar with it, like basic translation system where you would have a key-based system. So this one is using IAT Next, but the basic concept is just you have multiple languages, and in your source code you have a key-based system where you say my screen.foo or something, and then you would have multiple translations of that string. So we had a project here where we had 8 different languages, and we decided just to scrap them all because that's another talk about that, but the quality wasn't really good. So we just decided to go for English strings all over and no complexity with all the translation monster that we had. So this perfect application, just search for all IAT Next calls. There's all kinds of quirks you need to figure out there, and then insert the English string, and if you're nice, then wrap it in a small function, so you later can maybe upgrade to use another tool for translation that it works on the English string. So that's a nice application for it. Being able to try out new shiny tools on your existing code base, and by that I mean like there's constantly new libraries out there that we would like to try, and when you just download it and try it and run it, it usually just works. But when you try to apply it to your usual application or all your source code, it might fail due to some other requirements that you have. So I think this codemods helps me at least find the right tool for the job, and that's a bit like you get to open all your Christmas presents and figure out which one you like, and then you can maybe wish for something else. It's pretty nice. Wow. So for me, I've been working a bit on doing code mods for switching between different test libraries, because I think testing is pretty fun and it's fun to try something new. We originally had a lot of test at issue written in tape, which we were pretty fond of. Tried Ava to get more isolation and being able to run stuff in parallel. At one point it didn't really scale and was a bit slow on our huge test code. using different tools for requiring stopping different things. And so I've been writing some code mods between tape and Ava and Jest, and recently also Mocha and Jest. And those are really fun, and this is just some self-promotion. I tried out. If you would like to try Jest on your source code, it's just run it, and you can transform Mocha, Karma, tape, Ava into Jest, and just try it out. And hopefully it just works out of the box. And it's nice that people use it. Netflix use it to upgrade their test. So that's fun. And yeah, so this is just a quote from one of the authors of JS Codeshift and also Jest, Christoph. So it's about this being able to evolve your code base and maintain your code base health. And they're super fun to write because it has, at least for me, it has a super clear output. You know when it's right. You know when the program actually is what you would like it to be. Thanks.
Thank you very much.